if I can make getting them here real, then the rest of the story has to be accepted. And the biggest thing is making the time travel real. You're not even going to see it. And then from there on in, I've tried to keep everything as honest and as real and as physically true to this 8 hours of reality, of horror.
Verisimilitude is essential in bringing a book-like timeline to the screen. In order to buy time travel, Dick had to make it as real as possible. And in order to believe that our people were back in that period, he communicated totally with his crew and his cast that what he wanted to do was make everything as real as possible.
The work I normally do is based on a historical truth, although adapted for film purposes, because we're not making a documentary, we are making a story. But in this particular case, Richard Donner did ask for it to look real. So we've researched as far as we can the period, which is 1350s, but a lot of the so-called research is actually later, and it's the 16th century interpretation of the 13th. So we've just tried to be as careful as possible, because for our own sake it makes it more interesting. We've looked at lots of pictures of soldiers and archers and knights, and that's really what we've based the costumes we're going to make out of all this stock, and that we're actually creating ourselves. And these costumes come from various costume houses in Europe. And the nice thing about them is they've already been worn and broken down, and they've got dirty, and they've got age to them, and they've got interest. So I'm actually really happy to be using them. We've made quite a lot of bits to personalise them, and we've made the knights' costumes. We've also made our own chainmail, because historically it's extremely heavy, and I don't think any modern actor could possibly wear it. This is the mail we've been making, which involves a rubber link interlinking between the metal, which is actually quite quiet and quite soft, and it's got quite a nice sort of butch look. Again, after it's made, we then spray into it with some red oxide to give it a rusty look, because I'm sure in the field people didn't have time to keep the rust off their iron mail. This is the other sort, which, as you can hear, tinkles.
I thought at the beginning, going, oh, Lady Claire, that means I'm going to have the glamorous, nice medieval costumes and the Empire lines. And then he goes, no, it's far too nice, you're too pretty, you're meant to be a boy, go and get changed. So we went through like 4 different costumes, and from nice, thin, delicate, beautiful suedes, even dressed as a boy. We turned into this, but then 6 layers more, and then no breasts, and had to flatten all those down.
And then she turned into a girl
And then it turns out that it's not a boy.
I'm feeling Peter Pan meets Robin Hood. That's what I got going right here. Like everyone else is wearing stuff, you know, it's pretty rough and rugged looking. And they gave me the, like, juvenile peasantry garb, so.
Well, it was good that it didn't have to wear a corset. We made a decision not to do that because we had to do so much running, and also it's like a peasant costume, so they didn't have a corset, so which was great. But yeah, very comfortable and kind of heavy. The cloth's very heavy, but I think I fared a little better than some of the guys because they're wearing leather, like just 100% leather. So on a hot day, that's hard.
That was the advantage to this one, is I didn't get near as hot. Like Jerry's, for instance, he was wearing that full leather coat.
Would that be possible? Maybe it's over her, but she has it on.
Well, then we could, because they have her other stuff over.
Yeah, I don't want the coat. Dump it on me.
We shot up in Montreal. It was about 98 degrees, 100% humidity, and just hot as can be. And we wore wool, we wore leather, we wore sweaty stuff.
These may be the most unattractive trousers ever to be put on screen, which I'm going to ceremoniously burn at the end of this shoot. Because we have one costume, so it's the same. It gets a bit like, oh, not that again.
The helmets on the right are all ones we've had made. This is a knight. These are actually made of a plasticky material. It isn't fiberglass, it doesn't shatter, and it's quite light. And we hope, again, relatively comfortable and good for stunts, but actually looks like rusty metal.
A lot of the heraldry has been researched and put together by heralds in England. Each piece of heraldry belongs to somebody, so we couldn't have the Duke of Cornwall's crest being emblazoned on a French knight's shield. So a lot of it has been made up or slightly changed.
Simon Atherton created all the armory, you know, the swords, the shields, the helmets. He's just brilliant about every aspect of it.
I love your idea about the black arrows at night. We're going to paint them black. Have they ever really done that? I mean, is there any history that says they've done that, or you wish you had been a general in battle?
I don't know. Yeah, I think I would. I'd have done that.
It really would have been. You're kind of the Merrick. You're our Merrick. You would have lived that period.
He is the movie's Merrick. He not only knows every weapon, but how to use it.
We have to be as accurate as we can. It is a film, and we have to make it look right. Most of the weapons are, I should say, 98% authentic in their look, even though they've all been made. Nothing here is really original. We've manufactured everything. Our swords have been made from aluminium. Most of the weapons are made from aluminium. A, because it's light, the stuntmen like it, and it's reasonably safe. It doesn't sound so bad if you've been hit by an aluminium sword rather than a steel one. The scabbards, they're wood, covered in leather, and the belts are all bifurcated leather belts. I'm quite proud of that one. It's an interesting look, as close to what it should have looked like in the time. Maces and items like that, these are actually made of rubber for safety. So we do have hard ones and soft ones. Soft ones for the stunts and the falls that they do. Rubber swords, that is a rubber sword. So if a stuntman wants to jump off his horse or fall from the battlements, we can give him a safe sword. And then we have these nice large battle axes. They'd be quite good. They inflict a lot of damage. We made approximately 6,000 arrows for this film, and they're all slightly different. This is a blunted arrow that we will fire in the general direction of the opposing enemy. It is dangerous if it hit you in the eye, but we've taken precautions by putting a blunt on it that'll stop it penetrating anybody. Here is a rubber-tipped arrow. Even though it looks quite vicious, it is rubber. It's still reasonably dangerous. People cannot look at them when we're firing them. And then the third type of arrow we've got is a fire arrow. Same thing with a blunt, and it's carrying some cloth and felt that will carry the fuel that we can light.
3, 2, 1, fire! Shoot! Light it!
We're doing some 3D, three-dimensional stuff. We're doing a 3D arrow, computer graphics arrow in the time chamber, and we're also doing stuff that's just physically not possible, you know, and is dangerous for people, you know, putting people in dangerous situations. And you know, that's a great use of visual effects. You know, you can fire arrows and things right at people, and you don't put them in danger. Not a massive visual effects movie at all. I mean, there's some difficult things in here, and conceptually, you know, doing time travel, we want to do something new and different and new and refreshing, you know, and that's always a hard thing to do. One thing that we've done for the time travel is shoot a lot of blue screen, and I was saying that, you know, I think on the first blue screen day, mainly because we're shooting high speed and mainly because it's a mirrored environment, which means that you end up having to use a lot of different angles of people. I think we shot like 60 or 70,000 feet of footage on the first day of blue screen shooting, and that was mainly because we had 3 cameras running and they were all shooting at like 72 frames a second. And that's a lot of footage. And someone has to sit and go through it all, and that, unfortunately, is me. This is what's called a lighting reference sphere. One side of it is fully chrome, so you get a full reflection of the environment that you're shooting in, and the other side is painted a 18% grey, which is a photographic surface, so you get a representation of the lighting within the environment that you're looking at. So when we go and do our work and we're lighting the objects or the people or whatever we're going to end up doing inside the computer, you've got a good visual reference as to the kind of lighting in that environment.
What we're doing here is we're developing the look of the movie in miniature form and in model form rather than drawing form. The models you see here took us a week. It's a short period of time to get something designed, and then it becomes a great tool for the director, the crew, the construction crew, the art directors. It's painted, it gives you a good feeling of about what it really is going to look like when it's done.
this was here where they really, and then this is where they go and they get trapped. The horse blocks that way, they come back way, the horse blocks this way, and then she runs under the horse's legs and runs out this way.
This is a maquette of the tower room, which is where they escaped from Castleguard in. This is an example of a 3/8 model here. And if you'll notice that this beam here is this structure they're building right here. So after the set's built here, we'll take it apart and reassemble it on stage. Then after we assemble it on stage and shoot it, we're going to take these two parts out to the location and put them up on top of Castleguard. Welcome to Castleguard. Here we are standing in the courtyard to Oliver's manor house. Up here we have the tower room, which is what we built the stage interior for, and actually brought the pieces out here to erect them on top here to simulate the interior, so we can have the scene when she comes out of the ceiling. The architecture basically is the old manor house that was built with wattle and daub, old stone, and the theory is we have the new castle being built on the exterior. So you see all these sort of pylons in their beginning state being erected, and what's happened is because of the French and the English sort of conflict, they've had to slow down on their construction efforts for the new castle, which takes the place of this one. This location was actually built, I hate to say it out loud, but it was 7 weeks. But we were hard pressed to finish this one. We actually dressed it to the fine detail in 2 days prior to shooting. It was a real stressful set for that reason. One of the challenges we did have as well was because we started this show due to weather, we started with the interiors first. So we basically had design inside out. So the interiors basically dictated what the exterior was going to be, obviously. So we started with that and worked our way out.
We needed somewhere that looked like it could be the 1300s. Therefore, we had to find a location where there were no telephone wires, telephone poles, no signs of modern day technology. So we found a wonderful, beautiful location in England right on the border of Wales. And it had a river going through it, it had the mountain, it was perfect. Then what happened was it was hit by hoof and mouth and it was put under quarantine and we were thrown out. So we ended up in Montreal with an area similar to our place in England, which had the river and the mountains.
Here in the Great Hall, we've modeled the interior basically off of a location we found in Wales earlier in the film called Tower, which utilized stone, heavy wooden beams with a wattle and daub panel as infill. Basically, the procedure for us was making up some molds that created the stone and therefore was layered on to a plywood backing. Some of the dressing was brought in from London, such as these candelabras. One thing was important to the director in this particular scene was actually have a working fireplace. So we, try to make it as big as possible that worked with the scale of the room. And so that's what we got. We actually got a gas fire here with concrete logs. Part of the area up on top here is basically a hallway section that we have that will link us to the outside. So we'll have our characters carry on down and we'll bring us to the exterior, which we pick up on location in Harrington for the first time we see a medieval village.
Wow. The village of Castleguard. We're here.
We needed somebody who could score the contemporary characters going into the past. Brian's got a really interesting mix of classical, sweeping music and very contemporary, not synthesized sound, but a more modern sound.
The trick is balancing the present with the past. How do you distinguish them between present and past? Not only that, but French and English in 1357. So the balance was between music. Let's do that with a musical voice. Let's have a modern musical motor that runs through the movie, but at the same time, it intersects with this medieval, really aggressive sound. It's a rough time. 14th century is a hard place to live. So we didn't want to sugarcoat the music too much, make it too beautiful in the areas involving anything but the love story. So there's this collision course between modern music and ancient, aggressive, orchestral sound.
I think the beginning scenes are the hardest to find the voice for because you're trying to introduce everybody to all the characters and understand what's going on in the dig and what's going on with the professor and what is ITC and who is Doniger, and you want to have some music in the background to move that information along and yet to not move along so fast that we're not listening so that we understand. So I think that was the hardest part.
I don't remember exactly what I wrote right now, standing here.
Yeah.
Once I hear the first one, I'll look at it, then I'll start catching on, but the first time through I have to concentrate more on the sheet music. But the second time around I can watch the picture. And that's the difference.
Right.
If I
So
can
you
conduct
to the picture.
Yeah. Richard Donner directed this? I didn't know that. See that? That's amazing. It's on the screen, directed by Richard Donner. There are 4 main themes, and there are variations of them. The balance here is that you have characters on both sides of the table in the past and the present that are good and bad. You have good and bad in the present. You have good and bad in the past. You can't keep it simply as good and bad. So these themes were able to be manipulated in ways that would tell you through musical coloration what they were saying. You had Merrick and Claire's love theme. It's the strings and the piccolo flute talking to each other. In fact, if you take apart the melody of their romantic theme, it actually, you can hear their name in it, it's Lady Claire and Merrick, you know, and the way that the instruments talk to each other. So it's actually very literal, the way we brought those together. Chris and Kate have a really interesting relationship in that they're more of a team, a working team, in a sense. But as it goes, by the end of it, the music gets more romantic, as it does with Merrick and Claire. You have the English army. It was headed by Lord Oliver, and he has a little bit more menace to him. He's a tricky guy. But then, of course, you have our team, and they have a couple of different thematic ideas that progress throughout the movie, and really starts in the present with this really tight theme, and it's really you hear it when they're going through the wormhole, you know, and they're transporting through that. And then by the end of it, it really gets fleshed out into this kind of journey through time. You know, you have all these different instruments playing what used to be played by only modern instruments.